Okay, so I've been seeing a flood of Iranians celebrating what is happening over there with them attempting to take out the dictator, the theocracy leader of Iran. And they're doing the Donald Trump dance. Now, this is wild to see Israeli flags, American flags, okay? And if you go, you see a ton of posts like this, which is really intense post, right? Just nonstop celebration. Some of it is coming out of Iran, okay? Celebrations in Iran. Women not wearing hijabs. Okay, now they've been rioting and protesting for quite a long time. And yeah, posts like this are really wild, right? I'm Persian, not Iran, I'm Persian. And we're seeing just incredible footage out of this region. If you guys didn't know, joint Israeli and Iranian attacks to preemptively, allegedly, take out their dictators. And the footage has been nothing but incredible of just folks celebrating. Now, this is the interesting thing about all of this, right? I mean, this is wild. Yeah, this is wild. These folks are flooding the streets. Here's the interesting part about all this. Okay, so one, I live in Vista, Oceanside, California. I'm in Vista, but I go to church in Oceanside. And here's the thing that people forget about this. Like the war hawks and the folks that are like, yay, Iran, it's happening, so on and so forth. I understand that folks want to see Iran liberated. I don't think folks understand what it's like to be near an area where there are soldiers and hearing their take about it, right? So the fact that there's already been, at the time of this recording, at least 8 American soldiers killed in this conflict, I think should give pause to a lot of folks regarding the premature celebration of this. When I am in a military town, you start to feel the tension that a lot of folks that would have to actually go there and serve, right? And if you don't know anyone that serves in the military, you don't know anyone that could likely be boots on the ground, you might be removed from the situation and ideologically aligned with taking out an evil regime that has been consistently waging war on the West and allies for a long time by funding proxies and Houthis and all that sort of stuff, right? And so the reality of like, hey, don't be so quick to jump out the window and assume that this is necessarily going to be a walk in the park, right? There's already American casualties on this situation. And when you're thinking about soldiers, when you're thinking about people who are young servicemen, you know, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday at church who, man, he has a deployment scheduled for one part of the country, and then he had 1 year left on his contract, and then he was going to transition out, and now it's looking like he might need to go to Iran, right? And who knows what all of that entails. Some people would argue like it's different to fight war. Nevertheless, like there are American lives on the line for a situation like this, and we shouldn't allow that to detach us. There's also Iranian lives on the line. There's also Iranian civilians. You know, they say upwards of 30,000 Iranian civilians were killed in the protest. There's also Israeli people that are getting killed. So like, there's nothing cool about war. So the war hawks, I think, need to tone it down a bit. There's also the other extreme of folks who are like, hey, this is the end of the world as we know it. This is Armageddon. This is World War III. That is also not true. Now, can this thing escalate? It can, and it could get really bad. But we're not there yet either. I was turned on Breaking Points today, and I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting there, and it's a guy being interviewed on Breaking Points who is saying that Iran, America's going to lose this conflict, and they're talking to this guy because he has made some predictions, right? And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So I watch it. He has a YouTube channel, Professor Zhang. Okay. And this is what Breaking Point's doing. The U.S. will lose. I do one Google search on this guy and discover that this is a Chinese propagandist professor. He teaches in China. And so now you have Breaking Points, who I thought was like independent news, but because of their Israel derangement syndrome, are now championing the voices of Iranian professors who are basically saying, yeah, this, you know, U.S. is going to lose this conflict on day 3. And that's crazy that Breaking Points is there. Breaking Points that I used to trust as a reasonable voice on some of these things has completely been ideologically captured by the brain rot that is Israel derangement syndrome. And I'm not saying that Israel gets a blank check or that we should even be over there fighting Israel's war. At the same time, I don't know the particulars of what could have happened and what was prevented and not prevented. I don't know. I wish that there was better checks and balances. I wish that he got Congress's approval. I hope there's not boots on the ground, but it's already costing American casualties. So this idea that this is going to be a walk in the park is nonsense. But this idea that this is going to set off World War III is also nonsense right now. And so you got some folks that are saying this is Israel's war. You got other folks saying no, this is a war not just Israel's waging, but the entire world, because these people have been a complete pariah on the entire world, right? And everybody, I think, is rushing to have a take and have an agenda. And what I think it does is it poisons the well on what is actually happening. I was watching Breaking Points, and Crystal was raging about how one out of 5 Americans approve of this thing, and then I turn on CNN that says daggone 40% approve of this thing, and then I turn on a different thing and it says 50%. Like, who knows what the temperament is about this? I think most people understand Iran bad. I think most people understand, hey, they're really bad. And all the people who were hysterical about Gaza but were silent about the 30,000 civilians just killed last month in Iran, I think are complete hypocrites. And so all of this is very interesting. And so from my vantage point, I think this could either be an amazing thing for the future of that region if they could install someone in a democratic process, or this could be another Iraq and another Afghanistan. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think being intentionally cynical and almost wishing bad on your own country because of your disagreement with how some of this is done is just, it seems completely counterintuitive to me. I wanted to highlight, I've highlighted this dude before. I think he tends to have really generally good takes on this conversation, and I'll kind of chime in as well, is where he lays it out. And by the way, if you're watching this live, let me know if the levels need to be adjusted. But you got one side of the internet saying, hey, this is Trump's being celebrated as this liberator, especially the Iranian diaspora all over the world, especially women. Okay, and then you got another pocket of the internet saying that this is the most evil thing. This is how polarized we are. And again, I feel like so many people are trying to get out and poison the well before seeing what could come of this. And what could come of this could be a good thing. Could be a good thing for the world, believe it or not. Okay, so this is, I think you say his name is Kazan, clear thinker. Check this out.
It's not the start of World War III. It's not Iraq 2.0. There is a risk of backfiring, and we should be honest about that. The question is it worth the risk? Of course, no one wants war, but you know what else no one wants? The Islamic Republic, which controls Iran, slaughtering tens of thousands of its own people.
Yeah, and so therein lies the question of, when do Americans intervene? And there's a huge consensus that say, hey, when this sort of stuff happens, we should intervene. There's other people that say, hey, no boots on the ground, right? Don't intervene. That's a fair question. I think there is times to intervene. I think there are like what was happening in Nigeria. There are times to intervene. Okay, and so he's pointing out the obvious. No one wants a war with Iran, but if this is the hard decision that needs to be made to secure a better future, and there's a way to do it where it's not a repeat of Iraq and Afghanistan, perhaps you want to let some of it play out before you're so ideologically captured, like I saw from Breaking Points and like I'm seeing from others, to see what comes next, because this isn't a clean cut colonizer. The West is going in. The Iranians, by and large, seem to be very supportive of it.
Islamic Republic, which has been playing a game of nuclear poker with the world for 2 decades, bluffing for another 2. Hamas, which hurt both Palestinians and Israelis on October 7th, continuing to receive money and weapons from the Islamic Republic.
I find it interesting that military targets were hit, with the exception of the kids' school, the girls' school, which, by the way, it seems that it came out that wasn't actually Israel that hit that girls' school. It was actually an Iranian rocket that hit it. Same thing that was happening in Gaza with the hospital. Initially, everyone said, oh, how could Israel bomb a hospital? And then it came out verified that it wasn't Israel, it was Hamas. So they're hitting all these military targets. And then what does Iran do? They start hitting hotels in Dubai. they start hitting hotels in Arab nations, in Muslim countries. I find all this extremely fascinating.
There will never be peace in the Middle East while the Islamic Republic is in power. That's why almost every other country, Muslim and non-Muslim, Arab and non-Arab,
And those are the Saudis saying that, by the way. Cut off the head of the snake.
wants them gone. And you know what happened when we fired at them this morning? They fired back at Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE.
Yeah, that's crazy. They fired at a bunch of Muslim Arab nations.
Fired at them. They fired missiles at their neighbors. But okay, we're thousands of miles away. Why does that concern us? It concerns us because China, which is competing with us whether we like it or not, props up the Islamic Republic with money in exchange for oil. It's our concern because there's been an anti-American axis at play for decades. And while we've been fighting each other, they've been fighting us. So
that's a really good point. There has been a concerted effort between Iran, Russia, and China. Again, I'm shocked that Breaking Points is talking to an actual propagandist of China, professor who's teaching in China, to tell us how this is not going to go well. And yet internally we're fighting. Internally, Tucker Carlson's crashing out. And this is day 2 or 3.
let's talk about the risk. If you're scared of World War III with China and Russia, you needn't be. We already tested their alliance last June when we bombed Iran's nuclear facilities. China and Russia drew words, but not weapons. A year later, and they're doing the same thing because their relationship with Iran is transactional. And without them, Iran is weak. The bigger risk is Iraq 2.0. But Iran is not Iraq. Iraq is a third world country created by Britain and France whose people didn't want us there. Iran is a descendant of Persia, one of the most successful civilizations in history, with a sophisticated, capable, young population who wants a new government. And they've been asking for help.
Yeah, that's true. And in next clip, I'll talk about how this could potentially play out with a different leader.
Be precise about the areas of Iraq. It wasn't that we struck, it's that we occupied. And we can choose not to do that here. We can support the Iranian people by air and by sea and leave the rest up to them. And that's the biggest risk. We're creating a power vacuum and we don't know who will fill it. But for the Iranian people, after 47 years under the Islamic Republic, selling kidneys for food, what do they have to lose? It's easy to say you don't want war. No one does. But the honest question isn't whether you want war. It's whether what's good for humanity is worth risking it.
Yeah. And that's a hard question. And I don't have the answers to that. I did want to highlight this as a potential substitute. So this 60 Minutes did this yesterday. Hopefully we don't get hit. So this is Reza Pahlavi. I think I said his name right. His dad was the Shah of Iran. The Shah of Iran was a controversial figure. He was a king, and he essentially got overthrown by the Islamic Revolution because they say that he didn't treat folks who disagreed with him well. And so he's now doing press. He's in Paris, I believe. And 60 Minutes just ran an interview with him. And so this was what transition could potentially look like.
Prince Reza Pahlavi told us he wants to lead Iran in a transition to democracy.
You don't want to be king?
I'm not running for office. I'm not.
Are you saying in this interview that you wouldn't lead Iran?
That's a different thing. They trust me as a transitional leader, not as the future king or future president or future whatever. I'm totally focused on my mission in life, which is let me bring the country to a point that they can make that free choice. That will be enough for me having submission accomplished.
You imagine peace with Israel?
Of course.
And by the way, Iranians aren't generally anti-Israel. It's this regime, this radical Islamic regime that's anti-Israel.
Modern history, Iran actually gave refuge to Jews that were escaping the Nazis during the Second World War, giving them refuge and sanctuary in Iran. The strategic importance of having a partnership with Israel is critical.
What are the principles on which you would build a new Iran?
I think what today unites us are 4 core principles that I think is the subject of how we can work together towards that end. Number 1 is Iran's territorial integrity. Number 2 is the clear separation of religion from state, which is a prerequisite to democracy, and we paid the price understanding what it means to live under a religious dictatorship. Number 3 is, of course, equality of all citizens under the law and individual liberties. And most importantly, the process, a democratic process to allow the people to elect and decide what their future system of governance should be.
What would happen to the nuclear weapons program?
I think it should be totally dismantled. I don't think Iran has any need to pursue a military weaponizing of the nuclear program.
Pahlavi's father was the last king. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi was close to the United States, but he brutally suppressed opposition and showered friends with lavish wealth.
And so this is the reason why this dude, who by all measurable accounts seems to have a pretty prosperous and booming Iran, ended up having himself taken out and having to leave voluntarily because there was still brutal opposition of dissenting voices. This is his son doing this interview and explaining how he would be different, or better yet, how some of the apparent allegations against his dad were exaggerated.
In 1979, he left Iran amid rising political tension, and a hardline cleric, Ayatollah Khomeini, returned from exile to lead a revolution. Iranians blamed the U.S. for supporting the king, and revolutionaries overran the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. Your father's reign is remembered for repression and opulent wealth, and I wonder why you believe the people would welcome you now.
Well, that's perhaps one narrative, but when you look at a lot of people who were at the time living that era, they were telling me, you know what, we recognize where we were and where we are now, and today we want to be with you, we support you, we back you. And there were people who were in those so-called prisons that were notorious or repressive or whatever you call, they were in prison under the previous regime.
People were killed in your father's regime.
Look, my father left Iran voluntarily to avoid bloodshed. And he said, I'm a king. A king doesn't build his throne on the blood of his own people.
Yeah. So that's the potential transition of what could happen. Now, here's the issue: is you when there's a regime change from Iraq, we've learned that you can't just put in a puppet government. The will of the people has to be willing to rise up. And so what they've been doing is trying to mobilize the folks to rise up. And a lot of the messaging is like, hey, we can take out your top leaders, but you guys need to step up and overthrow your own people in power. You have to take them through the finish line. So they're offering amnesty to some of the leaders that are still around. They're offering amnesty to some of the folks in the military. How this is going to play out, I don't know. I hope that this doesn't then turn into an Iraq and go on and on and on. It can go days, it can go weeks, it can go months. But apparently President Trump is saying today that he has a 4-step plan. We'll see how that plays out. And could this escalate? It definitely could. I don't want to see boots on the ground. I don't want to see folks that I know that serve in the Marine Corps and serve in the Navy going over to Iran. Is there a way to do this tactically from the air without boots on the ground? I don't know. It would require the will of the people. And from all measurable accounts, it seems like the vast majority of Iranians want this. The numbers I saw, which is hard to get numbers out of Iran, but the numbers that I saw when I was researching this is upwards of at least 60%, more like 85% of Iranians not just don't approve of their government, like they don't think their government should exist at all. At all. Now, if you get someone in that is pro-democracy, which this gentleman seems to be, if you get someone in that is pro-West, we talk about open trade, this could be really good for the region. And so this is the crazy part about this whole situation. This comes down to this is either going to be very good for the people of Iran liberating, or this is going to spiral and be very bad. And unfortunately, it's going to cost American lives. And not just American lives, it's going to cost the people day to day. Oil prices are already going up. That means gas prices here are going to go up. It's a crazy time. Now, I don't want to come on here and act like I have all the answers and I know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what information they have. I don't know if this is just neocons wanting to, have wars so they could rebuild the military-industrial complex, or if they really have a pulse of what's happening in Iran and they know if they cut the head of the snake off, there go the Houthis, there go Hamas, there go Hezbollah, there go a bunch of other folks that have been funded by Iran, probably messing up what they were trying to do in Iraq. This could potentially liberate this entire part of the world that is, again, not like Afghanistan. It is not like Pakistan. Iran has a beautiful, rich history. Now, here's the trippy part about all this, is that they did this on the anniversary of the story of Esther, which was when the children of Israel were exiled to Persia, Babylon, and a king, someone close to the king, rose up to try and destroy the Jewish people. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think the Israelis are very intentional with that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of people don't like Israel and feel like they're pulling us into a war. If this works out, and if this ends up panning out, are those people going to walk back some of what they said? Is Tucker Carlson going to stop crashing out? Is Breaking Point's going to start crashing out? Is all the people that, right? And so again, I'm not going to sit here and come on here and act with certainty that I have the answers. And I am praying for our leaders, which I hope you do the same. I am praying for our military. I am praying for the people of Iran. I'm praying for the folks on the ground. I am praying that this can change. Because if this changes the entire region. This changes the entire region for good. And that would be massive. And so those are my thoughts on all this sort of stuff. You could disagree. You could say, did you get your $7,000 Israeli? Never gotten a dime from Israel. I think they exist and should continue to exist and should continue to defend their borders. Okay, and so hopefully this ends up working out in a way that I think is a blessing and not a curse. That's my thought with all of this. So I want to hear from you guys though. Let me know what you think. Of course, Blessed God Summit sold out, but we do have virtual tickets available. Okay, we do have virtual tickets available for $75. You can go to blessedgod.co. You can even bundle it up with some amazing Blessed God from the Summit merch. Pick yourself up a virtual ticket and come hang out with us. That's all the replays, everything is available on the virtual ticket.